Welcome to Caring for Kids, where we discuss physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of children in a positive, loving environment that promotes good decision-making. We believe in parental responsibilities and setting an example that will guide your children along life's journey. We want to raise the issues that matter to parents and children alike. Now here's your host, Carl Krebs.
Well, thank you for joining us again. Our second segment, Caring for Kids. This segment today is very personal to me. And the reason is because I met a wonderful couple. I'm going to deliberately change their names for the purpose of this broadcast because I had extended the invitation and they were going to appear with me on today's show. But Abraham and Sarah, as I'm going to call them, were advised by their lawyer not to speak too publicly about the ongoings that are going before the courts shortly. The reason why I wanted to bring them on was to make it known to you and maybe remind some of you who've gone down this road of adoption in Manitoba, because for me, it is a very personal journey. I went through this, down this journey over 25 years ago when I adopted my son. And in hearing their story, I was really touched by it because the process of adoption, although in many ways hasn't changed, it still runs its due course and it needs to. There are very strict adherences to procedures that make their way through the court. But let me just give some background to somebody that may not know how this works. And I'm going to tell it through the eyes of Abraham and Sarah. They came to a decision many, many years ago that they believed it was a call, and they would say it was a call from God to extend their home, open up their home, open up their hearts, and open up their lives to children that were not fortunate, children that were in the system somehow. And so they put their names forward to become foster parents. And there are a lot of good people out there. I could name some of you who are doing foster parent work. And God bless you for giving these children a home. And I know so many of you care for these kids in ways as if these children were your very own. And this is the story of Abraham and Sarah. They have loved these children from the time the kids entered their home at ages 3 and 4. They were fortunate enough to pick up a brother and a sister from obviously the same mother, and they came into their home. And from the moment that happened, they began to love on these kids. They began to instill their values into these children. They treated them as if they were their own naturally born children. And I certainly know these people well enough to say that they are truly blessed individuals that have a gifting to be able to do that, because I can tell you, this isn't for everyone. Foster kids often come, depending on what age you receive them into your home, they come from checkered backgrounds, if I could say it that way. They have been in and out of different homes. It's a feeling that I wish children didn't know, but they were always wondering, where do I go from here? At 3 and 4, they came, I believe, through the system, their birth mother, and we need to get these terms right because I want to be very appropriate and respectful to get terms right here. Their birth mother was not able to care for them, and so they were placed into the foster care program. And Sarah and Abraham were fortunate to get them. And these kids quickly grew to become children in the home. And it was years later that Abraham and Sarah did have kids of their own. But I can tell you, and the words from their mouth are, every child in this home is treated like every other child. And so as the years grew, the kids became very accustomed to living with them, and they loved them, and they treated them like mom and dad. They addressed them as mom and dad. Well, in the system that is, the birth mother would have access to the children if she so wishes to have. And I'm familiar with that process as well because I went through an open private adoption. This is an adoption that's going through Family Child Services. It's a little different, but everybody knows everybody in this arrangement as well. And so the birth mother continued to have on and off communication with the children, I suppose, as much as she could afford to have given her lifestyle. Things never really got better for her. And there were long breaches of time where the birth mother had no contact with the children, with her naturally born children. And so the kids grew up in the nurture and care of Abraham and Sarah. And so Abraham and Sarah raised them as children of their own. So that meant they were disciplined as every other child in that home would be. They were loved, cared, nurtured, fed. They were provided for. They would have become accustomed to the faith in the home that they shared with these children. And these kids have grown up to be phenomenal young men, a young man and a young woman. I've had the pleasure to meet them. I have never met such well-behaved children, respectful of their foster parents, but they don't call them that. They call them mom and dad. And so in the years that lagged, as the mother was unable to or chose not to, we're not going to cast aspersions on her. They just simply didn't want, didn't feel the need to continue the charade. And that's not a word they used, but it was the word that their son, the boy, used to describe why are we doing this sort of thing. It was playing into the system where on one occasion, the son to the birth mom said, "Mom, we like it here. And we don't want to go anywhere. We want to live here forever." And I can't imagine how that could feel in the heart of a birth mother to hear that. But it was obvious, and there was no denying it. All the facts are in that she was unable to care for them. So these kids knew they had it good, and they didn't want to go anywhere anytime soon. So again, on and off communication, they continued to be raised in that home, loved and nurtured. And it was a few years ago that there was a long segment of no contact again, where the birth mother just wasn't to be found. She wasn't in communication with the foster parents. And so there was some investigation launched. And you have to understand that this system is well documented. These children it is known where they are. It is known where the birth mother is certainly known about the foster parents and who they are and where they are, and visitations and reports are filed, and visitations by Child and Family Services would be part of that too. But here's an astounding fact, that after a period of more than 2 years, and reaching back through the foster parents, it was discovered that the birth mom had passed away. Well, that would certainly explain why there was no contact. But what was tragic about it is because Abraham and Sarah are the kind of people that said, we wept for the birth mother. We had our hearts broken because we knew that that was the last, natural contact between a birth mother and the children. And they said, we sure wish we could have known, but there was no contact. Nobody, it seemed, cared enough to investigate the matter and to move it forward and to advise the children, first and foremost, the children, that their birth mom had passed away, that their natural mother had passed away. And so they were left out of that grieving process. And I thought, our government, in the situations that it finds itself in with children that don't seem to fit in somewhere, and I'll go this far as to say these are Indigenous children. And there are very specific rules of adoption that pertain to Indigenous children. And so it is, you have the community, the Indigenous community and the mother on one hand, who in some way says, we don't want the children. And then you have Anglo-Saxon white people, on the other hand, that can't have them. So you have a segment that says we don't want them, can't care for them, another segment that says we want them, but they're told they can't have them. It's a very difficult process to work through. But let me bring it up to speed to where things are at right now. And to go back 2 years is to say this. These children have wanted to be adopted for a long, long time. They had said to their foster parents, to Abraham and Sarah, why don't you just adopt us? We don't want to go anywhere else. We want your last name. And I think about the children today. I think about the value of life that's out there. I think about the millions of babies that are aborted. I think about the hundreds of thousands of children that are placed in a system where somehow at the end of it, they're spit out. They come out of the system not knowing where they fit in. Here is a prime opportunity with two loving parents who have carried the ball, who have shown themselves to be trustworthy, certainly worthy to be the parents of their own children and these children that want to be adopted. And the kids all get together and love each other. They're a family. And these people right now are in the process of a long, expensive court proceeding to make something final that should be, in my opinion at least, decided almost immediately with a post-haste attention. These children are going nowhere except to live in that house. They want to be named as the same name of these beautiful parents that have loved them and cared for them and adopted them already into their hearts. Yet the procedures are so long. So now that the birth mother's passed away, believe it or not, and it sounds tragic to say it, it gets a little easier because there's no consent that needs to be given. There isn't anybody there that's going to want the children. Again, it should tug on your heartstring just a little bit to think these children are being loved and on the other side not being wanted. And so there is now a process by which they have to go through to laboriously search out, and I'm going to use the term here because it's fitting to use it, the sperm donor to these children. You may say, Carl, that is really harsh language you're using. You're calling the birth father a sperm donor. In this case, I am, because he has never made an appearance anywhere. He's never shown up anywhere, not a birthday, not a Christmas, not any time, anywhere. Although he is named for one of the children, he is not named for both of them. But the court errs on the side of doing all this judicial process to find someone who's missing, who is not being missed. He's an MI who no one's really missing. And he obviously doesn't want to be found. But these people have to go through a very, very expensive procedure to pursue. And they are going to pursue this until it becomes impossible to do. And that would be, should the sperm donor show up and insist to exercise his right, his paternal right as a birth father. Birth, yes. Father, nothing of the sort. Hasn't been a father ever to these children. And these people are going to be, they could have this absolutely yanked from their presence by the imposition of a will of a person. Why does this ring so close to my heart? Because my wife at the time did an open private adoption many years ago. And at the time, it was run by a wonderful agency. It was called Adoption Options. It was run by a wonderful woman and her husband as support. And we were able to be schooled in the ways of open private adoption. We attended a course which was mandatory, and all of the procedures were spelled out for us. And with the retainment of a lawyer, we were looking at probably around $6,500 to complete such an adoption. Well, fast forward now many, many years. And as the government has taken over all adoptions in Manitoba, I would like to get a hold of the lady. I won't mention her name here, but I'm going to make an effort to search her out and find out what happened to this wonderful organization. But I think I'm going to be told it was taken over by the government. Now the costs of adopting a child have gone into the $20,000 range. I was privy to know a young couple that live in the area of Winkler who have had to do numerous fundraising events to raise the money just to stake, to have a ticket to the event, so to speak. It was no guarantee. They have never, at least, a couple of years ago, I lost contact with them. They have not had their file reviewed, but they have had to put in up to $20,000 just to be in contention that maybe someone will pull their file, they'll be reviewed, there'll be a match because the process allows for adoptive couples to state what they're looking for in preference, right down to ethnicity, even to skin color, because this is a choosing process. It's not a process of identifying and accepting someone. It's choosing as to who you would like to adopt. And the birth mother has the same option to select the home that she would like, or in that case with the birth father, they would like their child to be placed in, and then the whole procedures roll forward. So back then, it was anywhere from around $6,500, I believe, would get the matter done. I had a contested divorce, which meant that the birth father suddenly, the sperm donor, suddenly shows up and says, I am staking a claim for that child. And we had already gone through the process. We had met the birth mother prior to her giving birth. And we had made a decision based on the information she'd provided to us that we would adopt the baby upon birth. And there's a whole procedure that which I won't get into. But that back then cost me upwards of $20,000 to work through the courts. Finally, with the birth father, the sperm donor, never showing up once into court, the judge had enough. And I had a strong lawyer at that time. He still has a practice in Steinbeck. And he put the judge on the spot and he said, this person can have his legal fees paid for by the government. My clients are hardworking people who are putting everything out to ensure that this child remains in their care and custody because we'd already taken them into our home. The story here is the process is painful and it's become incredibly expensive today, even in an uncontested divorce. And I wanted to just highlight that there are two beautiful souls out there, a mother and a father, that would love to adopt these children that they have had in their care and in their custody for more than 13 years. And I want to just, if you bear with me, I just want to show a picture of this beautiful couple. I want to just, there they are. And what I'm doing here to show my support to these people that want to adopt these children is to ask if you would partner with me and with Things That Matter in helping to raise money for their adoption. They are using credit cards at times to pay for legal fees. And that is probably the most expensive way of financing anything that there is. So through the organization that I founded, which is a nonprofit charitable organization, Things That Matter is an incorporated nonprofit agency. We also have an e-transfer link here, and you're seeing it right there. It's Samaritan at thingsthatmatter.ca. If you feel it in your heart, if this story resonates with you, if you can put anything towards their adoption, they are going to welcome it because these two beautiful parents love these children unconditionally, wholeheartedly love these children, and they want to be able to pay the way to get that beautiful sound that you hear of a judge stamping an adoption as final. And so I'm asking if you would see it in your heart somewhere to send whatever is available to you. I'm not asking for anything amount, but we need to raise as much as $10,000, and they're less than halfway there. They had a GoFundMe, which they've sort of taken, down because of, again, not wanting to tread into areas where they could get into trouble. But through my organization and through this e-transfer link, you can participate with me. And if you would just mark it adoption process, we have a financial secretary who will earmark that money. And I assure you, you have my word on it, every dollar we raise for this couple is going to go to them. And as I always say, if you are going to state something and you're looking for a solution, then be a part of it. Things That Matter is going to pledge the first $500 towards making this happen. Because if you know someone, and I'm sure you do, there's nothing more personal than children, which is why we have this segment called Caring for Kids. And it seemed appropriate for me to devote this 30-minute segment to talk about caring for these two beautiful kids that say, we want your God to be our God. We want your name to be our name. And I hope that you will be able to assist these people. I'm going to keep this e-transfer link open till the end of October, which is when they have their first court appearance. But they have already spent $5,000 and they have not even been in a courtroom yet. They're hoping for something to happen on October 28th. And I want to at least help them to shore them up in confidence to know that they have the money to go in there, because lawyers don't work for free. We've watched movies and the word pro bono is thrown around and you think, oh yeah, this is a good thing. But lawyers have families too, and they need to eat and they pay their bills. And they believe that the lawyers they have retained are honest and forthcoming. They have been very generous in how they billed them, but nonetheless, the bills come. And so I hope that you can provide some help and relief to this couple. It's Samaritan@thingsthatmatter.ca, and just tag it adoption process, and we will track every dollar that comes in here. I want to take just a few minutes and say how it's becoming ever increasingly important to talk about how we're going to care for kids. We have so much in the world right now that is contending for the souls of our children, that is children that don't have a home. They don't feel unconditional love. They have temporary love at the most. And I'm going to draw a comparison here, because when I consider that we are in a process of indoctrinating our kids into their sexuality at such an early age, these children are well into their teen years now, and they cannot seemingly, just by saying it, get the judge to make it official and say, these are your parents now officially. But we can have a system that drives into the heart and the conscience of our children that they may not be a boy, when in fact they are a boy, when they in fact are a girl. But here are two children that can make a decision, an informed decision, and they've made the decision, but somehow they can't get their rights shown and exercised here without going through this lengthy, laborious, expensive process called the court system. So, that was a lot, guys. That to me brings me all the way back more than 25 years. And it is really hard and it's difficult. And now it's expensive. So I'm going to say that please, if you can, contribute Samaritan@thingsthatmatter.ca. And I'll thank you in advance for your support.